So James, what's going on?
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to start off first of all, obviously this rent-to-rent problem that I've had, where I'll recap for everyone. So a few years ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, before I was in property full time, I've got a house close to where I live, and I did a rent-to-rent on it. So I rented it out to an agent, and he then set it up as a HMO, and he lets it out to his own tenants. So now everything was going well. It's been going well for about 7 years. There's been the odd late payment. There's been the odd kind of disturbance going on in the local area, and there's been issues with some of the tenants. But on the whole, it's been quite good. Now, recently, as soon as they announced this whole you don't have to pay, or you can have a bit of a rent holiday during this coronavirus type thing, this is where we started seeing problems straight away. Now, I'm talking problems not like within a week or so. I'm talking like 36 hours later, tenants are phoning in and saying, hey man, I'm in the shit. I can't pay my rent. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not buying this rubbish, because you can't, a day and a half later, you can't pay your rent suddenly, and you've just completed a full week at work. So alarm bells started ringing in my head, all sorts. And, you know, I ain't going to lie, I'm panicking a little bit, because there's a considerable amount of rent that comes into this from this property. And we make some decent money from it. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to be in the shit here. So I reach out to the agents, and the agents are trying to give me all this bullshit by saying, hey, no, you know what the government's introduced. They don't have to pay you for 3 months. So we don't have to pay you for 3 months. Besides, if we're getting any money, we're using that money to cover our fees, cover our legals, cover our bills, cover all our HMO costs before we even pay you out a single penny. So I'm thinking, I've got the shit end of the stick. I'm at the lowest point of this pile here. Why am I right at the bottom when I'm the one who's provided you assholes in this house? Anyway, so I started going through this contract. I'm looking through this contract now, and I'm thinking, they sent me a letter saying, okay, due to coronavirus, their rent-to-rent insurance has been cancelled. I'm thinking, okay, but it doesn't say that in my contract. I've sent this contract out to several people to have a look at, and still no one can really make head or tail of it. But the general consensus was that they are still liable. So I started the whole thing off by chasing them, phoning them, trying to get a letter to them. First alarm bell started ringing when their email box was full and no further emails were going through. So I thought, right, this weekend, I thought, you know, I'm going to do my Sherlock Holmes thing. I'm going down to the office. I'm going to find out what's going on. You know, this is quite important business. I know they say you should only leave your house for quite important things. To me, this was a very important thing. So, you know, I'll get down to the office. Now, I'm shocked at what I saw. Now, I've already shared this with Tej, but I get to the window. The shutters are down, which I expected. There's a notice on the window, and I thought, it's just going to say, due to coronavirus, we're closed. I was gobsmacked. I read this notice, and it said, dear agents, we have been trying to get hold of you for X amount of time. We've emailed you, we've rang you, we've tried to call you, WhatsApp you, everything. We live in the following shared house. Luckily, it's not my shared house, so I'm quite happy about that. But nevertheless, the notice said, the tenant in room 5 has died and we don't know what to do. Yeah, so I'm laughing about it now, but I was genuinely shocked. You know, I'm thinking, no, how does this work? The tenant's dead and these guys don't give a monkeys that someone's dead lying in the house. Do they really give a shit about me? And I thought that was it for me. It was like, no, they don't care. James, you are now definitely at the bottom of the pile, way, way, way down. So I get back home and I tried to send them both text messages. And you know, when you get that red X saying the message hasn't been delivered and your life's ending and you're thinking, oh my God, these guys are gone, man. They pissed off back to Portugal. One's from Brazil, one's from Portugal. And I'm thinking, no, man, now I'm in a bad position because I can't do nothing. So I eventually managed to get one of the letters through by a WhatsApp message to one of them who blue ticked it and accepted it. My mum actually has her own property let with these same agents. So obviously when she found this out, she went full flip mode, you know, mum force came in. So this is what I got to give it to her. Mum just comes in now and she goes in her accent, don't you worry. And she just happens to have this number on her phone from a while ago. And I'm thinking, Mum, whose number is this? She goes, I got Hassan number. I phone him. And I'm thinking, Mum, who's Hassan? He don't even work there. What are you going on about? She often makes this mistake, but lo and behold, she rings this number up and it's one of the agents. And I'm thinking to myself, nah, Mum's done it. She gets through to the agent. She gives him some shit. And I can hear her. She's actually swearing at him. How can you do this? Says, you effing this, you effing this. She goes, you accept my letter of termination and I want house back. And he goes to my mum, he goes, listen, Mrs. Hota, we've actually blocked James from contacting us because he's been bombarding us with messages, letters, emails and everything, but we are very much still trading. So that was a sigh of relief for me, but it still got me thinking that I do feel they're going to do a midnight moonlight because they've got a massive portfolio of landlords, and I know they're holding huge amounts of deposits because they're one of those guys that I don't believe they've held a lot of their deposits in deposit schemes, judging by some of the tenants they employ. So I'm very, very, very concerned on my next move. I did happen to dig out a tenant's number and I called him, and you know, this guy was a funny old character. I was saying to Ted, he was some Jamaican man, and first of all, he had a go at me for phoning him, and secondly, he started telling me all the things that were wrong in the house. Like, I was shocked. I mean, I went to the house about 6 months ago and there was a hole in the ceiling. There was a leak coming from the toilet waste pipe down onto the fridge, which is just nasty and unacceptable. So I said to the agents, listen, you need to fix this. This guy goes to me, they haven't fixed it. There's shitty water dripping on the fridge and it's fucked up the fridge. How you expect us to pay rent? So now it's all coming clear. So now I'm beginning to see what's actually going on in this house and why there's been an issue with payment. But so that's been my week pretty much. And the disaster now is, how do I get my house back? I don't know if you've seen that guy, that little guy, Paul Champlini on Landlord Services over on that TV program, Rogue Landlords and Tenants. So I got in contact with his firm. He's like, no worries, James. Here's my fees. I'll sort it out for you. I'll review all your paperwork. I'll get them out. But I can't, he goes, I can't do anything to the 26th of July, he was saying, which is the time when he can serve something. But he was talking about putting everything in place right now and getting things moving. So that's been pretty much my my biggest disaster of this week, and how I'm going to deal with it, and how really what to do. Because the worst thing is, when I look out my window, I can see the house, I can see the people sitting in the living room watching TV, I can see them leaving for work because they're contractors, and I'm thinking to myself, man, you know, and I can't approach them because I've been legally advised not to approach them, talk to them, because what that would mean is I will adopt them tenants as my tenants, and then I need to do a double eviction, one on the landlord, sorry, one on the agency, and then one on each individual tenant. So for once in my life, I'm listening to what the solicitor said and just taking a step back and walking out my house every morning, biting my bottom lip, thinking, how can I make it difficult for these guys? What can I do so they just leave the house? And I'm just, you know what, just bite my bottom lip. It's the first disaster that's happened of this kind in the last 7 years. So,
there's there's quite a few things in there, which, firstly, why weren't you checking up on the house more regularly?
Good point, Ted. Very, very good point, mate. You know, I've had this house for a long, long time. I've had it for about 11 years now. And it's been one of those ones that has just worked. You know, it's just worked every month. The rent's coming, give or take a few days, the rent being late. Once or twice a year, the agent's ringing me and saying, oh, there's a major bit of work to do, or there's this to do. Other than that, it's one of those properties, you know, like you, where you just let and forget. This was literally let, forget, don't even look at it, don't even want to walk in there, don't want to see it, don't want to hear about it. It was one of the best ones in the portfolio. But you're right, I should have been making more inspections. Like some of my newer stuff, I'm in constant contact with the tenants because I want to know firsthand if there's problems. But with these guys, I think due to the nature of tenant in there as well, there's a high turnaround. And you're right, I should have, that's my biggest mistake. I should have been making regular checkups.
Yeah, because I think whilst it wouldn't have avoided your rent-to-renters being idiots, it would have potentially mean that when you called that tenant, he was like, oh, hey, we love living here. And then it's a different discussion. But that's a minor point. But I guess it's just something for people listening is like, even if you have an agent, and especially when you're self-managing, like when a piece of work is done, it's like with builders, I don't pay until there's a picture or a video of every single, you know, I'm not paying you, simple. And they know that. So it's not even an argument. Same with like agents. If they send if I ever use an agent's person, which I don't, I'm saying you're not getting paid till I see it, and I want pictures of the freaking brackets you've used to screw the shit in, because I'm not paying you till I see it because I'm not local. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is the fact that they blocked you because you were bombarding them is just pathetic, because what do they expect you to do when their shop is shut, there's a dead tenant in one of their houses, and they're not like it just doesn't, like, they're being pathetic, and it's not like a valid example. It's not like you were bombarding them and there was no coronavirus. You're literally doing what anyone would do. So like you said, they're definitely going to leave. They're definitely going to take all these rents and they're going to fuck off. Like I don't know them, but I have no doubt in my head that in a month we're going to do this and you're going to be like, yeah, Tej, they're on a beach and they're living off everyone's deposits. Like, I have no uncertainty about that. But if they have not registered deposits with like a registered thing, isn't it a criminal offense or is it a company offense? You can definitely do something about your suspicion. When it comes to firing them or like evicting them, they've reneged on their contract by not paying you rent. So by nature of that, I'm pretty sure you can get rid of them and sue them and you're fine. But I'm not a solicitor, but that's what it would suggest to me, right?
See, my plan at the moment now is a contract. Where they've written the contract, somebody's legally said to me they haven't actually put the limited bit on their name and they haven't referenced a company name, which means you could go after them as a dual partnership and pursue them singly. So that's what I've done. This is, I think, where they're getting a little bit praying, where I've served them with notices on their individual names. Because I thought to myself, okay, I know you both live in very, very nice houses because I've seen your houses, you know. I'm thinking, if I'm personally pursuing you and I know you've got some mortgages, loans, nice cars on tick at those addresses, you're going to be more inclined to do something about this when a statutory demand arrives for me petitioning for you to go bankrupt. Because if you don't respond to it within 21 days, you know, it lands straight in a court. And it's one of those things where if you've ever had a stat demand served on you, I've had a few in my time, you shit yourself. You know, that brown envelope arrives with that crested thing. If you've not had one, the first time you had one, you're like, what the hell, man? This letter becomes a priority. You need to deal with this shit, because if you don't, you're soon in trouble. And if it goes to a bankruptcy petition in a court or a winding up hearing, it's going to cost you some serious wonga to get your barrister down, represent you. And if you don't turn up, they're just going to set it for a petition to make you bankrupt. So I think those are my routes. But what I don't want to do right now is, because everything's so sensitive with Corona, I don't want to make the wrong mistakes. You know, I don't want to do something that I'm going to regret. So I'm taking a step back, thinking, look, I've got a bit of time on my hand. Let me just play it by the right means and speak to the right people before I go ahead and get the guns out and start shooting.
Yeah, I think just for everyone who doesn't know what a statutory demand is, this is not legal advice. We're not legal professionals. Just a disclaimer here before you get sued. It's essentially like a method of a 21-day demand for someone to pay you money they owe you. You have to serve it under certain conditions. Often it has to be like the highest postage that's signed. In the days, I think it used to be face to face. Like James said, sometimes it has a crest on it because it's like, it's a bit of a nuke in a way. Because like James said, there's only certain conditions you can serve it under, and when you fill it in, you have to fill in certain things correctly. Like, you can do it yourself, and there's lots of guides on the internet, but if you fill in one thing incorrectly, you could wait 21 days, and then it could be like, you're a dickhead because you missed one thing, and it's not actually valid anymore. So you have to be careful with statutory demands. James has had them and served them. I've served one before. It worked. It is a nice, powerful way to get stuff done legally, instead of, oh, dear sir, madam, can you please pay the money? It's like, you have to do certain things beforehand as well. You have to follow certain protocols, or else when you get to court, they'll say you didn't do the right steps. But when you deliver it, it's great, because like James said, if they go to court, like, the court can just make them bankrupt and it could be a small amount of money, but they could still just strike them bankrupt. So it's quite powerful. And what you said there, James, is really important, that going after them as individuals, that's like, this is going to sound rude or whatever, but that's the aim. Like, if someone is being a dickhead like this through their company, and they're stupid enough to not use the limited liability that a company gives you, which is so stupid. If they put that on there, they could dissolve the company and you ain't got a chance in hell. But They didn't. And what this means is that when people do stupid things like this, and then they do stupid things like not paying your rent, and you go after them as an individual, it's a lot scarier and it's a lot more painful. And the buck stops with them. There's no, like, it stops with them and their assets. So, you're in a pretty good situation. And, for people like watching, you don't have to have a solicitor necessarily to read these contracts, but like James said, send it to a few people, send it to one of us, maybe not James, because his legal pack contractual skills have been proven before. You can send it to me, and we can have a look without PI insurance. It's not legal advice. And you can do things like this, which are really important. So that's sort of happening. And I think there's lessons from that, check up on things more often, understand the little nuances of like legal protection, because you're even more protected than I thought you were at first, which is awesome. And have people in your network that can help in these situations, right? And have a mum who has the guy's number, I think, is the most important lesson. Like get mums involved.